Let's talk about metering contestability. So metering contestability is this change, this rule change that's wrapped up in a thing called the power of choice, which is a program that's been instigated at a federal level. So some time ago now, some lobbyists managed to lobby COAG to make a change in the marketplace. That group of lobbyists were made up of a whole range of people, including retailers and others, and COAG passed some policy changes. And after passing those policy changes, the AEMC, which is the Australian Energy Market Commission, were given the job to implement those rule changes. So they're the guys that make the rules, set the rules, put them in the rule book and say there's the new rules, everyone's got to meet these new rules. The AEMC then hand those rules to AEMO, the Australian Energy Market Operator or organisation, who actually are given the job to make it happen. So you would have seen AEMO in the newspapers and on the media of recent times with the management of the blackouts and across the state that we had, and energy transfers from one state to another, etc, etc. So AEMO managed the national electricity market and the operations of it, and one of their jobs is to manage these sorts of changes into the marketplace. So these rule changes have come down through those bodies, and then groups like SA Power Networks as a distributor and retailers are then required to meet those new rules. So we have to be compliant to these new rules, which means we have to change the way that we do business and we interact within the marketplace to meet these obligations. So what does it mean? It means that SA Power Networks basically will no longer be able to be the meter coordinator or meter provider for metering services of new meters and metering installations. So that's sort of a nice easy sentence, but what does all that mean? How does that unpack? And we'll explore that as we go through tonight's presentation. What we will do is we'll continue to provide meter data services for existing meters that we have out there. So there's about 1.2 million SA Power Networks meters out there, basic meters out there. We'll continue to read those meters, provide the data to the market as we normally would. But we won't install new meters, we won't replace those meters when they fail. We're no longer allowed to do that under the rules, basically. Retailers will take on those responsibilities, and the new metering that they install from December the 1st, when this rule becomes actuated into the marketplace, they must meet some minimum standards, but they're basically what people would know as smart meters. Okay, so there's a whole long list of things that they need to meet, but they basically need to be remotely read, they need to be interval meters, they need to have remote re-NDing capability, and then there's a whole host of other things that they need to be able to do. They're probably three top things that the meters need to be able to capable of doing. And that's a minimum standard. They can't put in anything less than that. And the rule changes, they become effective as a rule from the 1st of December. From the start of business, the 1st of December. Just to continue on, so we've spoken about metering contestability. What is it at a national market level, and then obviously what are some of the changes in the animation. So the next section was to talk about responsibility changes. So all we've done here is just to give you a highlights package, I suppose, of responsibilities that typically a lot of these responsibilities currently sit down here that move into the retailer's realm. So retailers will take on responsibility of providing and installing metering for new installations, upgrade of installation, whether it be single-phase to three-phase upgrade, adding off-peak control, solar import-export metering, simply relocating a meter. The retailers will take on responsibility. If a meter fails, or it's faulty, or it's the end of life, the retailer will take on responsibility of replacing that SAPN SA Power Networks meter with a retailer meter. And we have processes with the retailers in which we pass that information to them. They also take on all of the metering services provisions. So with these meters, they have remote re-NDing capabilities, they have remote reading data collection capabilities. They take on all the responsibilities of those activities as well. So anything wrapped around that meter, that might be in-home energy management systems that connect into the meter wirelessly if they so decree to sell that onto the customer as a product, that's connected to the meter, that's all part of the service that they decide to take on. I won't try and imagine what raft of different products and services they may decide to on-sell to customers off of the metering, but there's a whole range of things that they may decide to get into in that space. I've said before they'll be responsible for collection and provision of the interval meter data to the market, so people can get their electricity bills and we can receive information so we can bill them for the energy that we distribute to their customers. And they'll also be responsible for managing any of the planned outages that are caused due to work on their meters. So if their meter provider has to go in and replace a faulty meter and that business has got to be off for half an hour to do that, they take on a responsibility to notify and manage the customer with those planned outages. We currently have a responsibility as a distributor to do that. It's generally 4 days notice prior to the outage. They will have the same responsibilities where they're creating the outage with meter works. SA Power Networks, we will continue to look after the meters that we've got in relation to reading them and providing the data to the marketplace. We will still be responsible to test meters that are in situ, whether it be a customer who wants the meter tested or it needs to be tested as part of our asset management program. We will still be responsible to install, maintain and remove service provisions, so overheads, over to unders, fused pit, unfused pit, pad mount transformer, low voltage rack and a pad mount transformer. We're still responsible for that piece of infrastructure to the property to provide a service. We'll still respond to outages and faults like we do today. People will still ring the emergency fault line and we'll still attend, whether it's a truck or a single crew that will attend site for whatever reason that may be. What we do when we're there may be different, but we'll still perform those activities like we do today. And everything else that we're still responsible to do as a distributor. So this doesn't change anything else that we currently do or are responsible to do as a distributor in the marketplace. So that's a bit of a snapshot of the responsibilities. So then the next part of the presentation that we wanted to talk through was about the processes, I suppose. This is where you get involved. This is where you start to interact with us. You start asking us to do things and asking retailers to do things like you do today. You've got some Visio diagrams, you've got some flow diagrams on your seats at the moment. We do have them in the presentation, but they're near impossible for you to read off of the screen because it's such a small screen. So what I'll do is I'll talk through these, and you've got 3 diagrams in your handouts. I don't think you have the one for PV metering, but that's okay, we can talk about it. And again, those diagrams will be in the Electrician or REC handbook when it's published out there for you to have a look at. So we talked through the new supply process, which is now going to be known in our world as a new service provision. It's just a name change, it really doesn't change that much. But from a high level perspective, what will happen from a step-by-step activity is that you'll contact us and request a new service provision for a new property. So whether it's in a subdivision with a fused pit out the front, or it's in-build where they're bulldozing and going to build a couple of side-by-side with need over to unders on them, you'll come to us and request for a service provision. You do it today. It's called a Form A, it's called a REX request. We'll talk about that later. But you'll come to us and ask for a service provision. We'll raise a job, we'll scope a job, we'll interact with you, we'll tell you where the service point's going to be, we'll do all the things we currently do. Nothing much will really change in that space. There'll be a charge on the job. The charge will go to the customer as it does today through an invoice, in the invoice process. What you will do different is after that, or the customer, or yourselves if you're going to work on behalf of the customer, is you'll contact the retailer, the customer's retailer for that property. And you'll request the retailer to provide you with a NIMI, because that's an activity they now do, and some metering. We've got a house coming up, it's going to be a single phase, it's got off-peak control load, it's 30 amps, it's a bread and butter job, or it's a large commercial site and I need 3-phase metering there. But you'll go to the retailer and you'll request the NIMI and the metering from them. Once we've received the service provision request and we've gone through that process, we will scope the job up and interact with you, tell you where the service point's going to be. We may even send a truck around and hang the service on the pole beforehand. And that'll all just happen. I think we do a lot of that today. We call it pre-construct. So we may hang it there weeks before you're ready for your booking. In the meantime, the retailer that you've requested the meter and the NIMI from will come and interact with us through the market, through some market transactions. And once we receive that request from them, and we've got your existing request, we will effectively then give you your ready to book notification, which you get today. If you're a Rex user today and you get an SMS or an email, you get your ready for appointment notification, you'll receive your ready for appointment notification at that point in time. Because we've got a service provision request, we know there's a retailer, they've asked for an IMI which we'll provide to them, and they're going to go off and organise metering because you've asked them to do that. We'll send you the notification, you'll contact us to book the job in, like you do today, or you book it online yourself if you use Rex and book your own jobs, and we'll attend site and energise the property. We'll do everything we do on that visit that we do today. So if the truck rocks up and hangs the service at that job, they'll continue to do that. The connections officer will rock up and go through a checklist like they do today. They'll collect an ECC form from you and they'll energise the site. What they won't do is do anything beyond the meter isolator. So they'll energise to the meter isolator, the line side of the meter isolator. On the other side of that meter isolator is not SA Power Network's domain anymore. So the wiring that comes out of the isolator through the metering equipment, from the metering equipment up to the main switch or main switchboard, will be part of the meter provider's piece of work that they do when they install that wiring. Now they may ask you to provide the meter tails, they may not. That's not something I can answer for you tonight. But we'll connect to the isolator, we'll tag, seal the isolator. There'll be a new tag that the Connect officers install that identifies the site's energised, safety tag. We'll actually put a sticker in the meter box door that'll have the Rex job number. You'll still have a Rex job number for all these jobs. We'll leave that on there for anyone that may come back a week or 3 weeks later who wants to know what the job reference number is. And there's probably going to be a sticker on the meter panel if the meter's not there yet that says the same thing. The site's alive. Just because there's no meter here doesn't mean it's not energised. It is energised. Once we've done our connection, I would assume that because you've had a discussion with the retailer and you've booked the job with us and we've sent you a notification 4 days before we attend site of when we're going to be there, and you've potentially relayed that information to the retailer, we would expect that the meter provider would attend site the day of or potentially the next day. If that all fails or doesn't happen, we will send the retailer a notification through the marketplace after we've attended site and energised it to the isolator. We will send the retailer a notification through the market to say we've energised that property today. So they will get an electronic notification anyway if, for whatever reason, everyone fails to talk to one another and get a meter provider there. And then they can get their meter provider there, or they could ring someone and say, hey, you know, did we miss this one? Do we need to get a meter installed for you? So that's the basis of the new connections process, I suppose, nose to tail. There's only one footnote, which is in new supplies as well as adds and alts, and that is that as part of the new connection, a lot of people put solar and PV in these days up front. As part of that, you'll still, or the customer will still be required to get an SEG approval from us prior to the connection occurring, which is basically today's process anyway. So there's still a sort of a state legal requirement that the SEG, or the small embedded generator, is approved by the distributor before it's connected into the grid. Okay, so that sort of step sort of invokes into step one, should they have solar at that property at the same time. And it's the same for an alteration. So that's a new connection. A notice of alteration or an upgrade or a relocate meter box or a single phase to 3-phase upgrade or whatever it may be, or a switchboard upgrade. The process is very much the same, and that is that you'll continue to come to us and request for a service upgrade. If you get a job that's a single phase meter box relocation or a 3-phase meter box relocation and you think, I think the service point's okay, but I'm not terribly sure. If you raise a job with us and we come out and look at it and go, we're not going to upgrade it, there's no harm done. I suppose the biggest harm is that someone needs to come out and have a look at it for you. But if you're in doubt of whether a service provision should be upgraded, it's okay to raise a job with us for us to check it out. If it needs to be upgraded, well then we'll get the wheels in motion to upgrade the service point. You'll contact the retailer and advise them that you're doing a piece of work. You can give them the Rex job number, reference number, like you can for the new connection as well, the Rex job number, and I think you do that today. Most people do that today. In fact, I think the retailers demand the Rex job number. And they will basically get the wheels in motion for the metering to get organised. Again, once we've got the job ready for appointment, we'll notify you that you can book it in. When you book it in with us and you get the date and time and you get your 4 days pre-job notification from us, you can concur back with the retailer that they'll have a meter provider there for you. If it's an upgrade and you're going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're going to strip it out, put all the new gear in, and you're expecting us at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're expecting mum and dad home at 5 o'clock to cook dinner in the evening, well then obviously your communication to the retailer is going to be meter provider 2 p.m. type of thing. SA Power Networks are going to be here at 1, they're going to put a service up and connect to my isolator, meter provider needs to be here at the same time. So you're going to have to coordinate through the retailer to have both parties on site. Otherwise mum and dad are going to come home at 5 o'clock and we're going to get caught short. So that's an alteration. Again, if there's PV or solar as part of that, you'll need to get the small embedded generator or the SEG approval up front. And there's, I think most of you have used that, there's a web form, or maybe the customers do it on your behalf, or if solar installers may do it, where they get an approval process up front. PV installations. So if anyone in here that does pure PV installations with an installer, that process changes a little bit. There's still a two-step process. One is you come to us to get the SEG approval. The second one is currently you come to us with a Form A for the meter replacement or the meter changeover to get an import-export meter done. In the future you'll go to the retailer to have that done. So you come to us with SEG, get the approval, and then you're done with us for a meter where it's just a meter exchange for import-export metering. The retailer will take care of the meter churn. They'll take the SAPA meter out and put their meter in with the import-export capability. Abolishments. I don't know if anyone here does too many abolishments, raising abolishments from time to time. The most significant change with abolishments from a process perspective is that all abolishment requests will need to go via the customer's retailer. In some situations people might buy a property and then ask someone to abolish it and it's been vacant for 12 months and they don't know who the retailer is. We generally get those phone calls and we will actually tell people who the last retailer is so that they can then go and approach that retailer to request the abolishment. The abolishments will come from the retailers to us and again we'll send out notifications when people want to schedule those jobs in for us to come and remove the service. If it's our service, our meter, we'll take everything away. If it's our service and a retailer's meter, we'll take the service away. And we hope that because the job comes through the retailer, they've made arrangements to have their meter removed by their meter provider. That's why all the jobs are going to go through retailers now, because they need to have the visibility to be able to remove their meters or make arrangements to have their meters removed. Or chase them down the Sims metal bin if that's where they ended up. So next in the agenda was Form A and Form B. So what's changing on Form A and Form B? Well, primarily Form A, which is used for new connections and alterations, PV meter installs. It's been used for many, many years and it's been redesigned many, many times. I redesigned it in 2003 and it's not been much prettier than that since. We are getting rid of paper forms after many, many years. What you know as a Form A today will become a web form or a web request. And if you're not a REX user, you're not a registered or regular REX user, and you choose to use the paper solution, that will stop on the 1st of December, and we'll offer those services through a online web form that you'll fill out. And at the end of that, you'll be given, you have the ability both to get a PDF of that form if you want to email that to the retailer. That's quick and easy. There you go. You organise it. I don't have to bother about going through the same thing again. And you'll also get your job number. So you'll actually get a REX number even if you use the web form. And that REX number that we use today, and we've used since 2009, I think, when well actually before that, when we redesigned REX in 2009, that's still going to be a key number for yourselves for tracking your jobs, both with us and with the retailers. So you'll get a REX number through the web form as well. The Form B, which is used for augmentation or quotes to get extensions, where maybe we need to do some pole extension, or someone's looking at a block of land at Victor Harbour or out the back somewhere and they're just sort of kicking the tyres at 50 grand, 100 grand to get some poles out there. That'll come through the same process as well. So we're kind of bringing those things together into a single web form. So that'll go live as well. There will be some, I think there's some user guides and help guides on the website that help people work their way through that. We've designed it in such a way that the form, when you actually start to interact with the form, it gives people a bit of a context, because we have a lot of mums and dads that try and fill these things out. It does give you a bit of context to say, if you're going to fill this form out, you need this information, and things like maximum demand and phasing usually stump them. And a general idea of how long it's going to take to fill the form out. So there's a bit of a guide up front for people who are going to embark on this form if they're not a regular user, to give them some information of how long it's going to take them to use it. Recs. So if you're a Recs user, there will be some changes in Recs. They're not significant. It'll still look the same. Yes, it is a little bit old. It looks a little bit dated, but over the next few years, we're looking to relaunch Recs onto a newer portal. It's got a bit more of a modern look and feel about it. In comparison with banks' websites and things, it's probably a little bit long in the tooth, but we're working on that space. Ultimately, it stays the same. It's to be able to create your jobs, track your jobs, book your jobs, and get your SMS and email notifications that we send out to you about the status of jobs, it's ready to book, etc. The messaging will stay the same. You won't be able to, in the future, raise a PV job, because we're not doing the metering. So from the 1st of December, you won't be able to raise a PV meter request job on there. Still get your SEG approval through the SEG form that's on the website, but the metering is something that goes off to the retailer. And you won't be able to raise abolishments on there either, because that again will now be invoked through the retailer. So you'll still see you create a new service provision, alteration to a service provision on there. So a lot of those will stay the same. The look and feel, like I said, the look and feel of Recs won't change a lot. Faults and emergencies. So for some of you, this is probably completely irrelevant. I work for a builder. I do new connections. I don't interact with any fault work, etc. But we thought we'd just include this as some general information for people in the industry, and that is that we'll continue to provide fault and emergency services, both to customers and electricians, or the gas guys have just dug up the consumer mains. But we'll still manage those phone calls and those call outs that when they come, there's a fire in the meter box, etc. You might get called in for a fire in the meter box after a customer's been there, the MFS has been there, and you need to come in and actually rewire the whole thing. But we'll still offer those services as we do today to consumers and everyone out there. We'll still attend supply outages. But what will change a little bit out there, and that is that if we attend site for a supply outage for a consumer, and we find that the metering equipment has had a terminal failure and thus they have no supply, whether the meters are existing meter that's there or it's a retailer meter that's on site, when it's safe to do so, our crews will invoke a meter bypass to get the consumer back on supply. So immediately after that, we'll notify the retailer, and the retailer will swing into action to replace the metering equipment and put new metering in and put the cabling back through the metering. Probably doesn't affect yourselves as electricians out there in the marketplace, but it's probably just a bit of an FYI of practice that we're going to put in place. There'll be tags, safety tags and notifications left in the meter boxes in those scenarios. So another point, where consumer mains are damaged, so if they've run the ditch witch through the consumer mains on an underground and you called in just to put a junction box in the ground, the meter, this SAPower Networks meter will stay there, because nothing's really changed in the metering space. The consumer mains haven't been upgraded from 6mm to 16, etc. But if it's something in the meter box, the meter panel's burnt out, or the meter box has been hit by a car and needs to be replaced, in those circumstances, in an emergency circumstance, you get called into those to fix that up. The SAPower Networks, if you've had to replace consumer mains from 6mm to 16mm, we won't reconnect into the old meter. We will request that a retailer meter be installed. The main reason for that is that we've got a lot of meters out there with very small terminals in them that probably only hold 6-10mm, some of them in the older areas, the eastern suburbs and older places like that. And quite often you upgrade a 16mm cable, you're not getting the cables in those terminals. So in those situations, the retailer will need to swing into action and replace the meter. In fact, if the meter's been damaged, it has to be replaced anyway, and we're not allowed to replace it with an SAPower Networks meter. We won't have them in the vehicle. the meters we currently install, we simply won't have them because they're non-compliant meters. So we're not going to buy any, and we're not going to have any in our vehicles as stock. But again, we get these situations. We'll work with you, and people will start to learn the protocols in the marketplace and with the retailers and their meter providers, and get people on site to get the metering installed. All of that being equal, some months ago, AEMO, so the people who are managing this at a national level, reached out to all the retailers and distributors because they wanted to get an idea of how people were feeling as organisations about their readiness to implement all of this. Sort of like, are we right? Is this, how do we feel about this? So after some discussions and negotiations, the distributors were asked if they could invoke some arrangements, some transitional arrangements to ease the industry into metering contestability. So we started to talk with some of the retailers, and ultimately what we've come up with something is they call the staged approach. It's a transitional arrangement, basically. So what does it mean? Any retailer who's opted in to the staged arrangement, for new connections, alterations or PV installations, if we receive the Form A, whether that be paper or Rex, and the service order from the retailer in our office by the close of business on the 30th of November, we will install the service and the metering if the job is scheduled in the diary with us to be connected by the 30th of March 2018. So for 4 months, from December through to the end of March, if the job's in the door before the end of November, we will do the service and metering. Now we're breaking the rules because we're going to put our SA Power Networks meter in, but the Australian Energy Regulator has given us, I suppose, a letter of no action that they won't take action against us for breaking the rules. We will technically break a rule, but they won't prosecute or chase us up about that because of these arrangements that have been made in the marketplace with the umpire, the regulator and all the participants. So that's staged. You would have, if you've done any bookings lately or made some phone calls to Sue in the last week going, what the hell's going on all these jobs? I've got jobs in, are they going to get done or not? If you're with a staged retailer, we'll treat your work this way. Any job that was received before the 30th, but you're not ready, and your booking is after the 30th of March, we won't kill the job off, it'll still stay in our system, you don't have to resubmit and reapply the job, but we won't put the metering on. Okay, so it's an important date. So the 30th of March, if I don't have a booking with SA Power Networks before the 30th of March on one of these existing jobs, they're not doing the meters. So you need to be aware that 30th of March next year for yourselves is an important date. The next slide is just, I suppose, is just a graphic to illustrate what we've just spoken about. New jobs in to the pipeline, booked in before the end of March, business as usual, service meter, we'll hang them. If you miss the window, or the retailer's a non-stage retailer, you'll kick into the new process from the 1st of December, which is you'll still come to us and make a request, we'll still do the servicing, we'll still energise the site, but you'll have to talk to the retailer about making those meter provisions installed. Like every transition period, this is a transition period, it's 4 months. Will there be some bumps in that 4 months? Yes, no one's going to paint it as a pretty picture for you. We believe that we've offered the retailers, the market, electricians, mums and dads, the best option of providing our services, full services, with including meters for 4 months over that period. We've made significant investment in buying more materials and meters to do that. We'll have a few warts through it, but ultimately I suppose when we get to the end here, we're now into the brave new world of metering full metering contestability, where retailers will take ownership of metering. Last couple of little bits, I suppose. Keeping up to date. The AEMC and AEMO have websites. They have lots of information on them. The best thing to do is usually search metering contestability and get there, because they have a plethora of information on their sites that's not relevant for you. Look at our website. We have information on our website. If you're signed up to industry news, I think there's a few industry news that have gone out already. There's been one about SEG capacity changes. I'm going to talk about that tonight. And also about metering contestability. There'll be further industry news going out to people as well to ramp up the information and the communications. Builders and contractors phone line. The guys on the phone lines are always happy to help. If they don't know the answer to your question, they'll always come and seek the right answer and get it back to you as soon as they can. We also have an email address that anyone and everyone's we're quite happy to receive emails through that, good, bad or otherwise. But potentially that's an email that we've provided so people can do questions. So you know, what happens when this happens, or I had this job and this went wrong, and why did that go wrong? We can basically get back answers through that email address as well. So there's a fair few channels in there for you to ask questions and get information.